12. Abhisandaya tu phalam dambhartam api chaiva yat ijate bharata shreshta tang yagya vidhi rajasam. Translation. But that sacrifice performed for some material end or benefit or performed ostentatiously out of pride is of the nature of passion, O chief of the Bharatas. Text 13. Vidhihinam ashrishtanam mantrahinam adakshinam shadha virahitam yagyam tamasam parichakshate. Translation. And that sacrifice performed in defiance of scriptural injunctions, in which no spiritual food is distributed, no hymns are chanted, and no remunerations are made to the priest, and which is faithless, that sacrifice is of the nature of ignorance. Text 14. Devadvija Guru Pragya Pujanam Shocham Arjavam Brahmacharyam ahimsa cha shariram tapa uchate. Translation. The austerity of the body consists in this: worship of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmanas, the spiritual master, and superiors like the father and mother. Cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and nonviolence are also austerities of the body. Text 15. Anudvega karang vakyam satyam priya hitang chayat swadhyaya bhyasanam chaiva vanmayam tapa uchate. Translation. Austerity of speech consists in speaking truthfully and beneficially, and in avoiding speech that offends. One should also recite the Vedas regularly. Text 16. Mana prasada somyatvam monamatma vinigraha bhava sangsudir ityetat tapomana samuchate. Translation. And serenity, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purity of thought are the austerities of the mind. Text 17. Shadhaya priya taptam tapastatri vidham narai afalankang shivir yuktai satvikam parichakshate. Translation. This threefold austerity practiced by men whose aim is not to benefit themselves materially but to please the Supreme is of the nature of goodness. Text 18. Satkara mana pujartam tapodambhena chaivayat kriyate tadeha proktam rajasam chalamadhruvam. Translation. Those ostentatious penances and austerities which are performed in order to gain respect, honor, and reverence are said to be in the mode of passion. They are neither stable nor permanent. Text 19. Mudha grahinatmano yat pidaya kriyate tapaha parasyotsadanartamba tattamasamudahritam. Translation. And those penances and austerities which are performed foolishly by means of obstinate self-torture or to destroy or injure others are said to be in the mode of ignorance. Text 20. Datavyam iti yadhanam diyate nupekarine deshe kale cha patre cha tadhanam satvikam smritam. Translation. That gift which is given out of duty at the proper time and place to a worthy person and without expectation of return is considered to be charity in the mode of goodness. Text 21. Yet tu pratyupakarartam phalam udishyava punaha diyate cha purgi klishtam tadhanam rajasam smritam. Translation. But charity performed with the expectation of some return or with a desire for fruitive results or in a grudging mood is said to be charity in the mode of passion. Okay. So I think we go back to 11. Just went by quick. Of sacrifices, that sacrifice performed according to duty and to scriptural rules, and with no expectation of reward, is of the nature of goodness. Purport. By His divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay, the general tendency is to offer sacrifice with some purpose in mind. But here it is stated that sacrifice should be performed without any such desire. It should be done as a matter of duty. Take, for example, the performance of rituals in temples or in churches. Generally, they are performed with the purpose of material benefit, but that is not the matter, not in the mode of goodness. One should go to a temple or church as a matter of duty, offer respect to the Supreme Personality Godhead, and offer flowers and eatables. Everyone thinks that there is no use in going to the temple just to worship God. But worship for economic benefit is not recommended in the scriptural injunction. One should go simply to offer respect to the deity. That will place one in the mode of goodness. It is the duty of every civilized man to obey the injunctions of the scriptures and offer respect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, to worship God is not necessarily always transcendental, as it's saying here, is that is more or less like a basic principle of human life. And the mode of goodness is to worship or to pay respects to God. And so, see, even the demigods, they also pay respects to the Lord, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that they're performing transcendental devotional service. So we see that more or less we've grown up. I was just speaking, I think this morning to Jaikeshwar Prabhu about how with my family when I was growing up, more or less we would only go to church on Christmas or certain holidays. And see, some sort of God consciousness is there, or maybe it's just out of ritual because their parents, my parents did that, so then we go out of ritual. But anyway, there's some sort of respect for God there. So there's some little goodness mixed in there. But it's not very much. And so some people may go to worship God out of fear because, okay, if I don't, then my place in the afterlife isn't secured. See, what a cheap concept that is, that if you just accept somebody in your heart, if you accept Christ in your heart, or your spiritual master in your heart, but you don't actually follow the instructions or live by the teachings of the guru or spiritual master or Jesus, but you're still saved. It's a clever trick of the mind, right? The mind can, if one's not so intelligent, the mind can justify this. Of course, it's a good justification if you want to just enjoy your senses and unrestrictedly, but still somehow convince yourself that you're going to be in a spiritual position in your next life. It's not a good justification, but it's a justification that the mind can make, because then your false ego can be protected. Okay, I'm performing sinful acts, I'm sinful, but I accepted Jesus, or I accepted the spiritual master, so therefore I'm going to be saved in my next life. So this is not in reality. Of course, if one performs devotional service, then they may get a human birth in their next life, but still, suffering will be there. The continuation of samsara is there. So it's always a precarious position to be in when one performs material activities, even though benefit is there, and you might get help by Krishna in certain ways, but there's always the duality. when you're under the influence of the modes of nature. So, see, what makes this transcendental is that one links up with the process of devotional service through Krishna's representatives. So then you don't just come to the temple out of some customary thing or tradition, but you actually come, you do some service, you worship the deity form, and you provide some sort of service, which is given by Krishna's representatives. And then it becomes transcendental. But just coming out of respect and doing things whimsically, oh yeah, let me come and, I'll put some money in there because that's what my parents did. And of course that's good, but it's not going to get you that far if that's all you can do. Of course, it's better than nothing. It's better than not coming to the temple. So we should encourage those that are coming for that reason to keep coming, because that's good. But they can also try to help them go a little further if they're willing, which most people aren't. But anyway, says it is a duty of every civilized person to obey the injunctions of the scriptures and offer respect to the Supreme Personality Godhead. So that is the duty of civilized person, someone who is rational or reasonable human being. Offer respect to God. That is the reasonable thing to do, because everything is coming from God. It's all God's energies. So one has to offer respect to Him. Next verse, but that sacrifice performed for some material end or benefit or performed ostentatiously out of pride is of the nature of passion, O chief of the Bharatas. Purport, sometimes sacrifices and rituals are performed for elevation to the heavenly kingdom or for some material benefits in this world. Such sacrifices or ritualistic performances are considered to be in the mode of passion. So the Vedas give some sacrifices, some rituals that you can do so that you can elevate yourself to the heavenly planets, so that you can get you can get enjoyment in next life. Perform these particular rituals, sacrifices. And this is to keep one and this is why Vyasadeva put him in the Vedas, is to keep people in the Vedic. It gives them some faith. Okay, I'll perform these rituals, and the next life I'll reap those results. So then they still have faith in the Vedas. So then they'll perform more because they enjoy, they get to enjoy their results, and then they'll perform more sacrifice. But then eventually they'll realize that this heavenly pleasure is not actually satisfying myself. So then they'll seek into the Vedas more. Okay, what else is there? Because this is happening. I'm getting a result from this. This is manifesting in my reality by following this ritual, this regulation, and I'm seeing, the magic of it, so to speak. So then they'll come. Okay, the Vedas speak about bhakti Vedanta. We hear from the bona fide disciplic succession, and then they perform devotional service, because that's when it explains that this is what actually will satisfy the self. Then okay, all this material happiness I was getting, it's not actually giving me that fulfillment through these rituals, but the Vedas also explain about bhakti. So then let me go and try devotional service. And then because they already have faith in the Vedic system. So the Vedas can be very gradual for some, and then some people can go directly to bhakti. It's the mercy of the pure devotees, but somehow or other Vyasadeva wants to make it all inclusive, so anybody can approach the Vedas, get some benefit out of it, and gradually be elevated. But devotional service is there. Of course, that's why we have Srimad Bhagavatam, because in the Vedas, all the Vedic knowledge, like the vast system, not talking about the commentaries like Vedanta Sutta or Bhagavatam, it's not very clear about bhakti, worship of Krishna, in all the Vedas. It's there, but it's not very clear. So then Vyasadeva, right, we heard in the first canto that he was dissatisfied even after writing the Vedanta Sutra. compiling the compilation of the Vedas and condensing it, and he was still unsatisfied. So then Narada Muni instructed, okay, because you haven't directly explained about devotional service. So then he wrote or compiled Srimad Bhagavatam, which explains directly devotional service to the Lord, the science of the Supreme Personality Godhead. So that's why the devotees focus primarily on Srimad Bhagavatam instead of all the Vedic knowledge, because Bhagavatam is the essence of all that. So the other Vedic, in the Vedas there's so much, there's so many hymns of, ritualistic sacrifice to perform, or so much other type of knowledge, sociology, Manu Samhiktas, you also have the Puranas and such. But all of that condensed, and in its essence is Srimad Bhagavatam is highlighting the person. It's the goal. It's what all those Vedas are trying to bring you to. So, yeah. So so in one sense, it's good. These ritualistic performances in the Vedas, but in another sense, it's not the best, of course. And this is a gradual elevation. So these people, the point is that they might approach the Vedas for some material benefits, but eventually, so they'll keep in that realm, and then eventually they'll come to devotional service. It's like we see now with the Hindus, right? Like, of course, they're not really actually studying properly, even the rituals and things like that. We can't perform rituals properly in today's age. But anyway, so that they're like in the Vedic concept, they have some faith in the Vedas. Of course, they're misled too, but they have some faith in it. So then it's easier for them to take up devotional service because they already have that cultural faith in the Vedas, or that education, that background. So then we see it's very easy more easy for people in India to take to the process of devotional service to whatever degree. Whereas those that didn't have that, faith already, it's more difficult, as we are seeing here in the Western world. But anyhow, the next verse explains the ignorance portion of this sacrifices, and that sacrifice perform in defiance of scriptural injunctions, in which no spiritual food is distributed, no hymns are chanted, and no remunerations are made to the priest, and which is faithless, that sacrifice is of the nature of ignorance. Purport: faith in the mode of darkness or ignorance is actually faithlessness. Sometimes people worship some demigod just to make money, and then spend the money for recreation, ignoring the scriptural injunctions. Such ceremonial shows of religiosity are not accepted as genuine. They are all in the mode of darkness. They produce a demoniac mentality and do not benefit human society. So, when one is in ignorance, they can't understand really anything properly. And so then they may just do these particular sacrifices, as mentioned here, but so they may worship a demigod just to make money. That's it. So they're not actually having really faith in the demigods or God or anything, but they just want money. That's it. That's all they're focused on. They can't see past that. Just to spend for recreation, ignoring scriptural injunctions. They are all in the mode of darkness. So, I mean, for us, I know that these particular ones don't really have so much relevance in the Western world because people don't really. I mean, I guess in one sense they perform some material, perform some sacrifice in religious circles for material benefit. Some people, I've heard that in the Mormon tradition, they have a good social network, so then you can get a job very easily if you become a member or whatever. Not easily, but they have good connections with each other. So some people approach that religious tradition for some, some economic benefit, getting a good job, having a good realm of, circle of influential friends, like that. So there's not actually so much God in the picture. It's mostly your own material benefit. But anyway, that's better than being just completely atheistic, so to speak. So anyway, God consciousness is there in everybody. So the degree that consciousness of God is there and it's awakened, that will determine what kind of faith you have, or what kind of what activities manifest from your faith. Like here, somebody's who in the mode of ignorance, they don't have any faith, they're faithless. So then that shows in their actions. They don't really care about God or about other people. They're just focused on their own material motivation. They can't see past that. And then the passionate people, in the more pure sense, you could say, more pure passion, they're focused on elevation to heavenly kingdom, right, into the next life. So they have some faith in our eternal existence, but not much. I mean, they're clouded by their own material desire, so they can't really focus much on God. And then those in goodness are almost there, but still, it's not quite there. It's not quite devotional service. But they respect duty, they respect scriptural rules, but they can't really see that, they can't really move past that duty mode, or that sort of reverential aspect towards God. Whereas bhakti is about love. It's about loving devotional service. It's about performing sacrifice because of love for God. Okay, text 14. The austerity of the body consists in this worship of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmanas, the spiritual master, and superiors like the father and mother. Cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and nonviolence are also austerities of the body. So these are nice to meditate on because they can apply to us in our lives. Austerities of our body, worship the Lord, Brahmanas, spiritual masters, superiors like father and mother. Of course, there's various fathers and mothers. Krishna's the supreme father. We have 9 mothers. Was it 7 mothers? 9? Huh? 7 mothers. 7 Mother's Day. Mother's Day is probably coming up pretty soon, a few months. I mean, always good to look out for that one. Cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and nonviolence are also austerities of the body. Okay, Prabhu says, the Supreme Godhead here explains the different kinds of austerity and penance. First, he explains the austerities and penances practiced by the body. One should offer or learn to offer respect to God or to the demigods, the perfect qualified brahmanas and the spiritual master and superiors like father, mother, or any person who is conversant with Vedic knowledge. These should be given proper respect. One should practice cleansing oneself externally and internally, and he should learn to become simple in behavior. He should not do anything which is not sanctioned by the scriptural injunction. He should not indulge in sex outside of married life, for sex is sanctified in the scripture only in marriage, not otherwise. This is called celibacy. These are penances and austerities as far as the body is concerned. Austerity of speech consists in speaking truthfully and beneficially and in avoiding speech that offends. One should also recite the Vedas regularly. Purport: one should not speak in such a way as to agitate the minds of others. Of course, when a teacher speaks, he can speak the truth for the instruction of his students, but such a teacher should not speak to others who are not his students if he will agitate their minds. This is penance as far as talking is concerned. Besides that, one should not talk nonsense. When speaking in spiritual circles, one's statements must be upheld by the scriptures. One should at once quote from scriptural authority to back up what he is saying. At the same time, such talk should be very pleasurable to the ear, By such discussions, one may derive the highest benefit and elevate human society. There is a limitless stock of Vedic knowledge, Vedic literature, and one should study this. This is called penance of speech. So these are very helpful. So what happens when somebody speaks but they offend? So even if the whole point is to not agitate yourself unnecessarily, because if you offend somebody, like it says here, that the teacher should not speak to others who are not his students if he will agitate their minds. This is penance as far as talking is concerned. So have you ever agitated somebody? You might have been speaking to them and then you agitated somebody and you can tell, like maybe on book distribution, maybe you got a little greedy with, wanting a donation or whatever, and then they become agitated and then they get mad or whatever, or subtly get mad. And then like your peace is taken away and then you're thinking about it, you're reflecting, oh, I did this wrong, I did that wrong. So all of that energy that your mind uses to lament about the agitation you cause, it takes away from your God consciousness. It takes away from your peace. And that's one of the points here is that these austerities allow your mind and senses to be peaceful so that you can actually focus on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is a point. So we want to avoid speech which offends, reciting Vedas regularly, speaking truthfully and beneficially. That is the same thing. If you tell lies, then automatically you become duplicitous, right? You're telling a lie. So then you also think about the lie. And then telling a lie is it can be especially when you lie to someone that you're close to or that is around you and you deal with on almost a day-to-day basis, or you deal with regularly, then you have to like somehow keep the lie going. So then it becomes like a network of lies. So maybe you lie about, let's say you're meeting someone for the first time and you're going to be friends. So then you lie and tell them that your name is something else, So then if you say your name is something else, then they always call you that name. And then you're always reminded, oh yeah, I got to keep this lie going. And then like this, your whole relationship is built off one little lie, but then there's like a network of lies that go beyond that. And that's all anxiety on the mind. And it's all duplicitous for whatever reason. I don't know why someone would lie about their name when you first meet someone, but it happens for various motives. So the point is that your mind will not be peaceful when you lie. So that's why we're supposed to be straightforward, simple, as it'll explain in the next verse. Simple, straightforward, truthful. Then the mind is peaceful. It's fine. So, yeah, you may have experienced that. Like sometimes I've noticed that I may have said something, but wasn't exactly what the person perceived it differently. But I'm always like a little anxious about it because they either I misspoke or they misinterpreted what I said. So then like there's always this like agitation, So then when you speak plainly about it, you clear up the communication. You make it clear like what actually happened or what you meant or what you intended. Then there's peace again in yourself and in the relationship. So so these are helpful for remaining God conscious. The next verse, and serenity, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purity of thought are austerities of the mind. Purport: to make the mind austere is to detach it from sense gratification. It should be so trained that it can be always thinking of doing good for others. The best training for the mind is gravity in thought. One should not deviate from Krishna consciousness and must always avoid sense gratification. To purify one's nature is to become Krishna conscious. Satisfaction of the mind can be obtained only by taking the mind away from thoughts of sense enjoyment. The more we think of sense enjoyment, the more the mind becomes dissatisfied. In the present age, we unnecessarily engage the mind in so many different ways for sense gratification, and so there is no possibility of the mind's becoming satisfied. The best course is to divert the mind to the Vedic literature, which is full of satisfying stories, as in the Puranas and the Mahabharata. One can take advantage of this knowledge and thus become purified. The mind should be devoid of duplicity, and one should think of the welfare of all. Silence means that one is always thinking of self-realization. The person in Krishna consciousness observes perfect silence in this sense. Control of the mind means detaching the mind from sense enjoyment. One should be straightforward in his dealings and thereby purify his existence. All these qualities together constitute austerity in mental activities. So there we go, mind, body, and speech. Certain meditations to think about, cultivate, practice. This purport is always comments Prabhupada makes, which are very heavy, very strong. You know, the ideal standard of Krishna consciousness and controlling the mind is one should not deviate from Krishna consciousness and must always avoid sense gratification. He really, Prabhupada really lays out the standard, you know, because obviously we're not there, otherwise we'd be performing pure devotional service. So we're not able, in the neophyte stage, we're not able to always avoid sense gratification, whether that's subtle or gross, but that is where we are headed. That's where we should be trying to head ourselves. And to purify that is to become Krishna conscious, as he says in the next sentence. And then this is the only way that the mind can be satisfied is by taking the mind away from thoughts of sense enjoyment. Yeah, every time I read this first, half of this purport, it's like, bam, just a punch like anything. Because the conditioned mind is that's our predicament, right? We're contemplating sense gratification, so then our mind has dissatisfaction, it's agitated, whatever. So that is the goal, is to fill up the mind with Krishna consciousness so that we think of pleasing Krishna and not our own sense gratification. And to do that is a whole science. That's the whole science of devotional service. That's the whole Varnashrams for. It's the whole, sadhana bhakti. That's all. It's all to do this, to get this mind under control, focus on thinking of Krishna. Okay. Any comments or questions? Yes, Bhakta friend, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. Thanks for the nectar class. I'm wondering about free will and conditioning, because if we're jiva souls and we're covered by, I guess, our misdeeds once we come into the material manifestation, is free will just the ability to entertain our conditioning? Because we're not our conditioning. So say you have a thought that's about gratifying the senses, which could be like, as we just heard, like anything from like goodness to ignorance, which is ignorance, like doing painful things to the body or others. And like, it could be subtle too, so you're thinking about it. But like, since we're conditioned, that thought kind of just comes up, especially when we're in this scenario. So I'm kind of wondering, like, how minute our free will is, or like how weak are we to the situations that we're in. Like, how, like, it seems that these verses actually say, like, I know this is kind of like a common question, I apologize, but it seems like these verses are saying that the only way to get over conditioning is actually to be situated with devotee association, because you don't have the power to not entertain your conditioning.
Yeah. Well, it's a really nice analogy. Before I say the analogy, so basically, Nectar of Devotion explains that, like, so if we're talking about material desires or sinful desires, whatever, then those are fructifying. Those are reactions that are fructifying from our previous acts. So one manifestation of a reaction from a sinful act is material desire itself. So that's one reaction. Another reaction is a physical injury or disability or illness or something. It's also another example of manifestation of a sinful reaction. And then there's sinful reactions which are in its seedling form. They're not actually, they're just inside. They're not actually, they haven't sprouted yet, but they're there. They're coming. Or those that are already here and now, we're working with. So these are four manifestations of sinful reactions that are coming. And they all have to do with material desire or sinful desire, either previously or now. That always caught me when I read that that's part of my conditioning, because conditioning means that, we've picked up some baggage here in the material world. So now we have material desires that are popping up because of sinful reactions. So it's not actually really us per se. Now the question is, things are coming up and I'm experiencing these, so where is my free will? How does my free will play the part? Well, the analogy that's really nicely given is about, it explains how one can be controlled by their conditioning, at least for some time, but there was a choice to be made at some point. And that is when one decides to take intoxication. So when one wants to get intoxicated, get drunk, then, they make a decision when they're sober. Okay, I'm going to drink this, whatever it is. I don't want to get into details, but whatever it is, whatever, liquor there is there, they'll drink it. And now they made that sober decision to drink it. And now they have to live out that reaction of being drunk or intoxicated until they're sober again, and then they can choose, to make another decision to drink again or not. Of course, by doing that activity, by making that choice to intoxicate, it gives you momentum that the next time, most likely you'll do it again, because, it's becoming more of a habit now, especially if you do it multiple times. And then some people, it just becomes a second nature, right? So the point is that that time which you're drunk, your free will is somewhat limited, right? Because of your intoxicated state. So sometimes it's like that. But for most of us, it's like that. That we perform at some point, we decided to do some material activity. And now we have to live out that reaction for whatever the reaction is, we have to live it out. And it might be a reaction that really entangles us in the material world. So then it becomes more difficult to choose Krishna next time, right? Because now you're dealing with entanglements from the material world. So it's like that. But the free will is there. It's just, it's very minute, especially when one is very conditioned in the material world. Now, for someone who is chanting 16 rounds, you're basically becoming free from that influence of Maya. So it's not possible to chant 16 rounds and be, completely under control of sinful desires. It's not possible. You get the blessings of the Parampara by chanting 16 rounds. Now you actually can make purposeful. Well, now you can really make conscious decisions, and whatever we decide to make whether we make decisions that are in nature service to Krishna, then that continues to keep us free from entanglement. But then if we choose things which are material in nature, then we're going to become entangled to whatever degree it is. Entanglement. There'll be entanglement, subtle, gross, whatever. It's going to be entangling. And so that is a thing. So we have minute free will. And even if you choose material activity, which is entangling, because you're continuing to follow the process, like chanting and trying to follow regular principles, then purification is being given still. But now you're becoming, more entangled in the material world. So, what about those 16 rounds, huh? If you ever need to get on the straight and narrow, just ask Rishi to preach you about chanting 16 rounds. Actually, you're really good at getting people to chant 16 rounds. Seriously. Okay, thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.